I'm LaVern Vivio from the Blaze TV, and this is Wide Awake. Now, I'm here at the hallway of Mercury Studios, if you can call it a hallway. It's rather big to be a hallway, but it's the center of our studios. And it's fun to watch this area because since I got here in July, this place is constantly changing. It seems like every week and certainly every month something changes in this space. And of course, it's no surprise because it's being driven by the mind of Glenn Beck. But as you watch all these changes here, it's very comforting to know that the one thing that stays consistent, that has been consistent from the very beginning, is the foundation that Glenn is building all of this on. And that's a foundation of a belief in God. And while I could say that probably most of us here believe in God, a lot of us are Christians, there are plenty of people that aren't, that don't believe in God. And it's a very diverse group, as a matter of fact. And so we have some very interesting conversations behind the scenes. And it's no surprise that a lot of those conversations happen from something that was said on radio or on TV. And that was the case a few weeks ago whenever Pat and Stu filled in for Glenn on morning radio. Pat started talking about the Piltdown Man. And as Pat explained it, the Piltdown Man was what was long considered the missing link for about 41 years. But what happened, there was a couple of bone fragments found in 1912 back in England. They found a jawbone and a piece of a skull. And when they put them together, the reconstruction had a very ape-man-like feature to it. And it was declared we have found the missing link. And until 1953, it was agreed that that was in fact scientific evidence. But upon closer examination of those bones, it was found that not only were the bones not of prehistoric time, they were from, number one, the skull piece was from a modern human, and the jaw piece that had been used was from an orangutan. The entire thing was a hoax. It was completely fabricated. But for 41 years, it was thought to be a valid piece of scientific evidence. And as I talked to my coworkers about that, I said, you know, that's not the only time in history that that's happened. It happened again right around 1920. There was a tooth that was found that was thought to be prehistoric in a field in Nebraska. They thought that this tooth had belonged to something human from a prehistoric time, and so they took that tooth and they created a jaw. They took the jaw to make a head, they took the head to make a man, and they came up with what they thought was another ape-man-like creature that they named Nebraskan Man. Now, while it seems kind of crazy that they would take a tooth to recreate an entire man, what's even more astounding is later, upon closer examination of that bone fragment, that tooth, discovered that it wasn't even connected to humans. It was actually a tooth from a warthog. Now, that little piece of fabrication didn't live near as long as Piltdown Man, but it did live long enough to show up in the Scopes monkey trial. The Scopes monkey trial happened in 1925 in Dayton, Tennessee. It was a case from the state of Tennessee brought against John Scopes, a substitute teacher. He had taught evolution in the classroom, and it was illegal to do so at that time. Well, part of the material that he drew from was the information about the Piltdown Man and the Nebraskan Man, because they thought it was truth. It's a famous piece of history, and there's actually a movie based upon the Scopes monkey trial that you're probably familiar with. It's called Inherit the Wind. If you watch that movie, I told Glenn one time that the character, the Spencer Tracy character that plays the defense attorney in that movie, he actually reminds me of Glenn. Not because he was the defense attorney in an evolution movie, but because he argued for what he believed completely and totally was the truth. Because if you think about it, the scientific community at the time of the Scopes monkey trial, they believed that the information on the Piltdown Man and the Nebraskan Man to be absolute truth. So that's all the Spencer Tracy character was saying was, will you just look at the truth and make an honest judgment based on the truth? That was his argument all along. And I told Glenn, you kind of remind me of him just a little bit, because that's what we're trying to do here. The truth matters, because when you don't pay attention to the truth, you get things so convoluted as the Scopes monkey trial and some of the things that are happening in our society today. We care so much about the truth here that we say over and over, the truth has no agenda. And if we put something out that turns out not to be fact, we don't try to cover it up. We run to set the record straight. We even have a show that bears that name, For the Record. That's why it's so important, the work we're doing here, because the truth matters and the truth has no agenda. And we need you to help us out. Keep subscribing to The Blaze online. We need those monthly subscriptions. Go check out theblaze.com every chance you can. Take those news stories, put them out on social network. Of course, support our sponsors. That means a lot to me since I do commercials here. I'm just saying. And we need you to talk to your cable providers and tell them you want the Blaze TV. If they ignore you, consider changing to one that will carry it. If you don't have a local provider that will carry the Blaze TV, Dish Network is available everywhere. But beyond all of that, beyond doing all of that, more importantly, we ask you to keep us in your prayers. You know, this past week, Glenn had Mark Batterson on. He is the writer of The Circle Maker, a great book on prayer that talks about praying bold prayers consistently and expecting God to deliver on those prayers. From one Jesus freak to another, that is the game changer. That's what's going to make the difference for us here at the Blaze Network. So keep putting us out there, keep telling your friends about it, doing everything you can to support us, but above all, keep us circled in prayer. Thanks so much for all of your support. Stay with us. I'll see you later this week on the Blaze TV, and next time on Wide Awake. Till then, God bless and Lastio, y'all.